Unless we build it now. It's the future, y'all. It's the future. Ain't no future unless we build it now. United States, Africa, we salute ya. A new state of mind, I introduce ya. Close your eyes and visualize the rise of a new paradigm. Solar powered skyscrapers.
Welcome to the Africa Must Unite podcast, a podcast dedicated to inspiring African people worldwide to rise up, organize, and struggle for Pan-Africanism, a unified, liberated, socialist Africa, the only permanent solution to the exploitation and oppression of African people, no matter where they happen to be born or happen to live in the world. Now please, welcome the hosts of Africa Must Unite.
Africa's future is now, so get ready.
Greetings, I'm Brother Neil. And I'm Brother Maurice. This is Africa Must Unite podcast, and we are the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party. The PRSP. That's right. You know, we're going to start off, Brother Maurice, with, as we usually do, with some dates from our calendar. And those of you who have a calendar can follow along with us. Later in the show, we'll show you how you can get a free digital copy of the calendar. Our concentration this week is on the Caribbean, so we're going to just talk about a few dates from the Caribbean in this history. And some of this is positive and some is negative. On the 20th of October, there was a mass revolt in St. Vincent against Great Britain's raising of prices in 1935. And this was a mass revolt that spread throughout the island. On the negative side, however, on the 19th of the month in 1983, Maurice Bishop, who was the Prime Minister of Grenada and the revolutionary leader of the New Jewel movement, was murdered as a result of contradictions within the movement. The United States and its Caribbean puppet allies invaded Grenada a few days later on the 25th of the month. Today, in our current event, we see also negative action in the Caribbean. We read in our local papers and news articles that Cuba is suffering from a loss of its electrical power. What the media tend not to suggest or inform is that this is a result of these ongoing sanctions, which in fact are methods of war. And these sanctions have not only been carried out against Cuba, but also against Venezuela, which was giving oil to Cuba, which kept the electricity going. So these are some of the things that have happened in the past and some of the things which are going on today. They're all connected. The past is connected to the present and to the future.
Okay, and I'm going to continue reading of our theme titled The Need to Unify the Caribbean, straight from our calendar. Let's start off with a quotation from Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. He stated, "A strong and powerful nation of peoples of African descent in the West Indies would give a strong fillip to the efforts we in Africa have been making towards the creation of a united Africa," in quotation. This was a letter from Nkrumah given to the West Indian heads of government on June 7, 1962. Our calendar continues to read for this theme, the Caribbean is on fire. The United States is imposing crippling sanctions on Cuba, which has already had to withstand over 60 years of an economic embargo and act of war. Despite this, the Cubans have more embassies from Africa than any other Caribbean nation, and they continue to educate Africans, including some from the United States, especially in the field of medicine. Haiti is also struggling from the brutal dominance of the U.S. Africans in Haiti have been under attack from Western imperialists since they achieved their independence from France in 1804. The United States has invaded militarily several times, and now is attempting a new military invasion. This time by pulling the strings of Kenya and other assorted neo-colonial puppets. The discovery of iridium, an important mineral in the manufacture of smartphones, is an important factor in the United States' interest in Haiti. It's worth 3 times the price of gold. This combination of gunboat coercion and economic strangulation is just a continuation of centuries of oppression. Just as slavery in the Caribbean was key in the building of capitalism, a unified socialist Caribbean in concert with a unified socialist Africa will secure the well-being of Africans throughout the globe and speed the entire world toward worldwide socialism. I conclude for this
Yes, sir, brother Maurice. That's a powerful statement there in the calendar. And today we're going to have Brother Maurice, who, as many of you, our listeners know, is a member of the PRSP. And within our study process, he concentrates on the situation in the Caribbean. So he has put together quite a bit of information for us. And we also have a guest who's from the Caribbean itself, Brother Seli Adeyemi, who will also be commenting within the discussion today. Brother Adeyemi, could you just give us a very, very brief introduction in terms of who you are and your history and so forth?
Okay, thank you. Greetings to one and all. My name is again Seli Adeyemi. I'm from St. Thomas in the U.S. Virgin Islands, which is, a colony of the United States. And I've sort of been involved in the Black movement from like in the 60s, right? My consciousness, Black consciousness started by connecting to the civil rights and Black Power movement. While we were in the islands, we would get old newspapers and magazines, and from those we get some little idea of what was as to what was going on in the United States, and that sort of fueled my consciousness. And then, of course, I was drafted into the U.S. Army because in the U.S. Virgin Islands we got to do the military thing also. And in the Army, my consciousness really was elevated to the next level. Given that I was there when Martin Luther King was assassinated, and they were getting us as troops to go out to quell the uprising that you had going on in various cities in America. And a group of us soldiers decided we were not going, we will not participate in that sort of thing. And so things like that, started increase my awareness, my consciousness, and my interest in our people's movement. So I've been in a few organizations over the years: AAPRP, African Students Association, West Indian Students Associations, Student Progressive Organizations, and so forth. Yeah.
So thank you very much. And I want to add just one other thing, Brother Adeyemi. As a student organizer, was able to interact firsthand with people like Walter Rodney and so forth, and also as an organizer of the AAPRP, interact with all sorts of folks from all around the world. So we're going to start with Brother Maurice, and our theme throughout the years, Nkrumaism shines the way forward. So, Brother Maurice, first question we want to pose to you is, how does Nkrumaism shine the way forward in unifying the Caribbean?
Yes. And before I answer that question, I just want to thank Brother Seli for being a part of this broadcast today. And I'm interested to hear his presentation and his feedback as well of what's going on the Caribbean. To answer your question, Brother Neil, Nkrumaism can stand the way forward for African peoples in the Caribbean developing an African personality, and increasing industrialization under a scientific socialist system. Having an understanding of Nkrumaism will lead to understanding philosophical consciousness that connected political education with progressive action. I just want to quote a quote from Nkrumah. He stated, "The core of the Black Revolution is in Africa, and until Africa is united under a socialist government, the Black human race throughout the world lacks a national home." So while the Caribbean's well-being and future prospects will improve significantly when it unifies, our permanent liberation lies in a unified socialist Africa. As Nkrumah stated, a strong and powerful nation of peoples of African descent in the West Indies will give a strong fill-up to the efforts when Africa have been making towards the creation of a united Africa. And this is the same quotation that I quoted earlier from the calendar. So this is highly important.
Okay, so thank you very much, Brother Maurice. So what you've given us is the Nkrumah's perspective on the unification of the Caribbean and its relationship to the unification of Africa and as a worldwide movement. Now, in what previous ways has the Caribbean attempted to unify? And I'll start with Brother Maurice again.
From my research, Brother Neil, visions to unify the Caribbean goes back to the mid 1800s. I'm sorry, 1800s. Between 1875 and around between 1898, when Pan-Africanist Joseph Antenor Furman from Haiti helped develop the Caribbean Confederation Project to unify Cuba, Haiti, the Dominican Republic, Jamaica, and Puerto Rico. As a candidate in Haiti's 1902 presidential elections, he also declared that the Haitian state should serve in the rebuilding of Africa by becoming, rebuilding Africa. And he was trying to attempt to become president. This is what he stated. Also in Haiti, Juan Bertrand Aristide came to power in 1990. Under his leadership, access to healthcare, education, adult literacy, and housing all increased. Human rights improved by instituting land reform, doubling the minimum wage, and reducing government corruption. Aristide also entered Haiti in a humanitarian agreement with Cuba, having Haitian doctors trained in Cuba and having Cuban doctors working in rural areas. This agreement promoted 573 Haitian doctors, Brother Neil, trained in Cuba to provide support during the 2010 Haiti earthquake. And also in regard to Cuba, the Castro brothers, one of the most revolutionary brothers this world has produced, Raul and Fidel, they developed the United Party of the Caribbean Socialist Revolution on March 26, 1962. When we look at Puerto Rico in 1959, the Puerto Rican Socialist Party was founded and was greatly influenced by the Cuban Revolution. The Puerto Rican Socialist Party saw the struggle of Puerto Rico as a part of the struggle against capitalism and neo-colonialism, and saw the Puerto Rican struggle as an international struggle connected to the Caribbean and African struggles. When we look at Grenada, Brother Neil, Maurice Bishop led the New Jewel movement and a socialist revolution in 1979 on the island. Bishop once stated, quote unquote, "We are one people from one Caribbean with one struggle and one destiny," end quote. Even in the Bahamas, we had attempts to unify. The Caribbean in 1971 under the Vanguard Nationalist and Socialist Party, who were inspired by the Black Panther Party.
Wow, that's really quite an extensive history that goes back quite far. Brother Adeyemi, what do you have to add in terms of this history of our people in the Caribbean in their attempts to unify?
Okay, I think I'll begin, since you mentioned Kwame Nkrumah, I'll begin with the fact that at the Fifth Pan-African Congress in 1945, one of the resolutions dealing with what was called West Indies at that time, one of the resolutions calls for a federation of West Indian nations and self-government for those nations. That came out of the Fifth Pan-African Congress, of which Kwame Nkrumah was definitely, very much involved with. But to go back again, you have a very rich and dynamic history, because you have some of the foremost radical revolutionaries coming out of the Caribbean in the 19th century, being involved in one way or another in trying to form some sort of a Caribbean nation federation. You had, for example, the father of Puerto Rican independence movement, Emeterio Betances. Betances, you have him meeting in several Caribbean islands and in Paris and France, trying to forge this Caribbean federation. At one point, I think in 1909, even though you had some early attempts, right, from the mid-1800s, in 1909, Betances, Jose Marti, Antonio Fermin, that Maurice mentioned, and I believe Gregorio Luperon from the Dominican Republic, who's Afro-Dominicano. They all were involved in actually forming what was called República Antiliana, which was a federation made up of Puerto Rico, Cuba, Haiti, and what was called Santo Domingo at that time, which is now the Dominican Republic. They formed it, they selected officers and a structure and all that sort of thing. Before that, there were only attempts also at federation, a Caribbean federation. And then back in the mid-1800s, you have a man from Guyana in South America named Mackay Hughes. He would attempt to form a federation also with, Puerto Rico. Well, he wanted to start it off with what will become independent nations. And as more and more Caribbean nations become independent, they will join this federation. But I think one of the most important efforts at unity you have coming from Caribbean radical who live in America in the early 1920s and 1930s. Giants like Richard Moore from Barbados, Wilfred Domingo from Jamaica, Ote Huswood from Suriname, and a number of others, Cyril Briggs from Nevis. In New York, they will form various organizations and various attempts at Caribbean unification. And of course, you would have African American activists in New York also in support of these efforts. So when the United Nations was being formed, Caribbean radicals from America came up with a petition for the independence of Caribbean nations and a federation of Caribbean nations. And even though sometimes they could not attend those important international meetings, like the UN foundational meeting, they will try to get someone who could get in there and represent, or share their petition or whatever proposal they came up with concerning Caribbean Federation. So it's a rich history. And then, of course, in 1958, you would have the famous West Indian Federation, which is, you can't talk about any effort at unity in the Caribbean without talking about the West Indian Federation, which started in 1958 and ended in 1962 when Jamaica pulled out. Jamaica had a referendum, and the people in Jamaica voted to not be part of the federation, and Jamaica pulled out. And once Jamaica pulled out, Trinidad pulled out, and that was the end of that. Some of the problem, the Caribbean radicals in America, like Richard Moore, they were critical of.
Yeah, let's hold on. Let's
Okay.
As you're moving into this problematic area, that's the next question I actually have. So I want to start with Brother Maurice in terms of what are the problems in terms of preventing the Caribbean, from unifying.
Yes, and thank you, Sally, for that wonderful Brother Sully for the presentation of including some real heavy hitters that I had left out of my presentation. But the answer, to get back to the question, I have specified it to basically four specific predominant evils. And that first evil is obviously capitalism, and which is capitalism is a exploitative economic system that benefits a small group of people who become wealthy from exploiting the labor and land of the masses. That's the first predominant evil that we need to defeat. Number two, imperialism. Imperialism, a global economic system that exploits native and working class people all over the world through military backing. That's the second predominant evil. Third, number three, neocolonialism, puppets, the comprador class, sellouts who may embrace our culture and who also may look like us, hint, hint, Kamala Harris, but put their selfishness and greediness before the needs of the collective, the people. And four, if we can beat this predominant evil, if we can overcome this predominant evil, and this is honestly the first predominant evil we must overcome in order to defeat the first three I spoke about. And this would be number one, the masses being unorganized, meaning not having an understanding that we cannot be fully free as a people until we as African people reclaim and unify our homeland of Africa under a system, and it's run by the people and it's for the people. That system being scientific socialist, which means a system that put people before profit. That's humanism. A system who treat people how they want to be treated. That's egalitarianism. And a system that will protect all African people, black people, anywhere they may be on this planet, and that's what you call Pan-Africanism. So these are the four predominant evils that we must overcome. If that's clear to answer your question.
Okay,
this is what prevented the Caribbean from unifying.
Yeah, thank you very much, Brother Maurice. And what you provided us with is with a framework for looking at those problems of unity in the Caribbean. Now, brothers, Sally, when you look at this framework, how can you, what historical actions can you put within this framework that kept us from organizing unity within the Caribbean?
Well, as you know, Brother Maurice talked about neocolonialism. That is definitely a major factor that we need to look at. You have this elite, this petty bourgeois elite class in the Caribbean who serve the interests of the capitalists, the wealthy capitalists and imperialists. They seem to be sort of comfortable with the status quo. So you can't expect much from them. So it has to be from the activist community, the Pan-Africanist community, and so forth. But even in there, we have seen a serious reversal since the end of the Grenadian Revolution in 1983. There's been some major reversal. We have lost a lot of some of the major figures, some of the major institutions and entities that existed that will promote that education of the masses, promote organizing of the masses, promote Pan-African teachings, promote socialist teachings. A lot of those institutes no longer. For example, you had the Caribbean Conference, the Caribbean Contact, which was put out by the Caribbean Conference of Churches, which was a major paper that promote Caribbean unity, promote Pan-Africanism and so forth. And they harassed the editor. The editor, Ricky Singh, used to live in Barbados. He was from Guyana. They actually deported him and harassed him. Papers like that stuff. We had very powerful radio programs like Radio Antilles out of Montserrat. They no longer exist. a lot of the organization key leaders have passed on. A sister out of a Ross sister out of St. Martin, Angola, very powerful. She had relocated to Ethiopia. She passed. So many of our iconic activists and organizers passed. Many have gotten older, and there have not been much replacement. And so that is a factor impacting our situation. There's a lot of confusion also now with with a lot of the disinformation that you find in social media among the youth and so forth. So we have a lot of issues, and then you have things like CARICOM. Since we're talking about Caribbean unity, CARICOM will be similar to the African Union. And while there are some positive things that comes out of CARICOM, certainly because the petty bourgeois leads those organizations, there's also a number of shortcomings. I mean, why is it the situation in Haiti, for example? CARICOM has not been able to really make any major input in trying to address the situation, which it should, but it hasn't, and that's because of the petty bourgeois nature of the leaders of CARICOM. If you look at the most of the leaders of Caribbean nations today, they aren't, there's a days when you had Eric Williams in Trinidad, you had Errol Barrow in Barbados, Manley in Jamaica, and so forth, Jagan in Guyana. Even though there was some issues with those leaders also, you have nothing comparable to that today. In the Caribbean, I mean, the most, I guess, liberal or progressive person you're talking about is maybe Mia Matley from Barbados, and Ralph Gonzalez from St. Vincent. That's it. Possibly the brother from Etienne from St. Lucia. And then, of course, you have Cuba. But outside of Cuba, when you look at the rest of the Caribbean, we have definitely taken some step backwards since the 1980s, 1970s, and 1980s. So we have a lot of work to do. That's not to say that nothing's being done, but I think we definitely coming from a position where we are not in the same kind of position where we were in the 1970s and 1980s.
Okay, so thank you both for that, because what we see is that there is in Caribbean, we see the same process that we see around the world, where there's revolutionary advancement, and then we take these revolutionary steps backwards, and in order to move forward, we have to figure out how do we move forward to take the next step forward after we've stepped backwards. So, Brother Maurice, I'm going to give you the last word here. What does Nkrumaism say about how we should deal with these steps backwards?
Yes. And before I answer that question, man, I just want to say that every listener on this to this podcast, everybody who is listening and tuning in, I would urge you to get 2 books by one of our comrades within the PRC, Mama D, and also a contributor on this show, Mama D. She released 2 books, and the first book is Kwame Nkrumah and Nkrumaism, the essential elements of the ideology for all African people, those at home and those abroad. This book is both of these books, we take a $5 donation. And let me get to the second book. The second book is Kwame Nkrumah and the Young Pioneer Movement, interviews with young pioneers and others. These 2 books are important because it's going to give us what Nkrumaism say how we should deal with uniting the Caribbean and uniting African people around the world, and uniting Africa, and then also give us the black print, or the blueprint. Some people call it a blueprint. I'm calling it the black print, for us to reach to our youth. Because as Brother Sally said, the gap is like the political, from what I interpreted, like the youth, we need to continue to pick up these pieces that great leaders like a Walter Rodney, Marcus Garvey, or what have you, so forth and so forth. We need to continue to go on, and we need to pass these these literature to our youth. And, in these books, at the least, if you read one of these books, it will take you. If you read one page a day from one of these books, it will only take you 3 months, at the least, to finish these each book. So I would say, I know some of us we working 2 or more jobs. We have families we got to support, but these books are very compatible with a busy schedule. If you read one page a day, you will get the answer you need. Now, to answer your question, and you can go on Amazon, or you can contact or go through the website, which we will give later in the podcast. But to answer your question, Brother Neil, it's going to take a coalition of African organizations like ours, PRSP, to solve the problem by continuing to politically educate and organize the masses to understand that capitalism is the enemy, and not only Pan-Africanism, but more specifically, Nkrumaism is the solution. This is what Nkrumah say, how we should deal with it. A United Africa Scientific Socialist States. We cannot be free until our homeland is free from colonialism, neo-colonialism, capitalism, and imperialism. And last but not least, I will refer to another book by Nkrumah titled "Class Struggle." We must have a class struggle to eliminate all of these evils, if you will, all these isms, as Brother Neil likes to label these things from time to time. It's going to take political education to organize it. It's going to take this is what it's going to take to eliminate us and to unify the Caribbean along with Africa. And I hope this answers your question.
Okay, I think you've done a fine job of answering the question and of providing us with a great deal of information throughout the podcast. And Brother Sele Adeyemi, we want to thank him very much because he has also provided us with a wealth of information that we can take some time to digest and help us to move forward as a people, not only in the Caribbean or the United States and Africa, but throughout the entire world, this global struggle for Pan-Africanism. Now, all throughout 2024, at times with the help of invited guests, our focus will be on the theme of our calendar, Nkrumaism, shining the way forward through the crisis in today's African world.
So join us next month when we all discuss next month's theme for November, the necessity of monolithic ideological unity.
And meanwhile, we would like you to contact us, and you can contact us by visiting our website, Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party.org, all one word, Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party.org. Once you get to that site, you can also get one of our digital calendars free. So you want to go there and get one of our digital calendars, and also be on the lookout for our calendars for 2025. They'll be coming up soon. You can also email us any of your comments, positive, negatives, or whatever, at Pan-African RSP at gmail.com. Again, Pan-African RSP at gmail.com. Like us on SoundCloud.com. Visit us on YouTube. Leave comments on www.facebook.com /Pan-African Socialist. That is www. Let me do that again. www.facebook.com /Pan-African Socialist.
That's right. Please visit these websites that Brother Neil laid out. And spread the word. And also, please remember, organization is the key. Join us, the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party, or some other revolutionary Pan-African Socialist organization. A union of African socialist states is on the horizon.
Till I'm laid to rest, yes, always be depressed. there's no life in the West. I know the East is the best. All the propaganda that spread, tongues will have to confess. Oh, I'm in bondage, living is a mess, and I've got to rise up, alleviate the stress. No longer will I expose my weakness. He who seek knowledge begins with humbleness. Work 7 to 7, yet me still penniless. For the food up on me table, master God bless. All of the needy and shelterless. Ethiopia await all prince and princess. Till I'm laid to rest. Yes, always be depressed. There's no life in the West. I know the East is the best. Yes, propaganda then spread. Tongues will have to confess. What could a man about the East? Everybody want a piece. Africa free Africans, man. Cosmos I speak. Unification, no nobody think. What a day when we walking down Redemption Street. Man up our head, Bible in a hand, one and all. Make we try the promised land. Would you go down a Congo, stop in a Shashamane land? The city of Ferraris where Selassie come from. In Addis Ababa, then Botswana. Left Kenya, I end up in a Ghana. Oh, what a beauty, my eyesight behold. Holy Ethiopia, protect me from the cold. Till I'm laid to rest. Yes, always be depressed. There's no life in the West. I know the East is the best. All the propaganda can spread. Tongues will have to confess. Organize and centralize. Come as one. Overseas shall be so many more than sand. Some new one replenish. Pure and clean and for too long we been under this man. Some a say for bag of riches and them dead empty hand. Once them is stupid and not on your can. Easier for a camel to enter through an eagle line than it is for a rich guy to enter in a Zion. Take it from Iman. So till I'm laid to rest. Yes, always be depressed. There's no living in the West. I know the East is the best. Lord, propaganda them spread. Tongues will have to confess. Oh, I'm in bondage. Living is a mess, and I've got to rise up, alleviate the stress. No longer will I expose my weakness. He who seek knowledge begins with humbleness. Work 7 to 7, yet me still penniless. For the food up on me table, master God bless. All of the needy and shelterless. Ethiopia await all prince and princess. Till I'm laid to rest. Yes, always be depressed. There's no life in the West. I know the East is the best. All the propaganda them spread. Tongues will have to confess. What could a man about the East? Everybody want a piece. Africa for Africans, man. Cosmos I speak. Unification, no nobody feet. Once again, we walking down Redemption Street. Ban up our head, Bible in a hand, one and all. Make we try the promised land. But you go down a Congo and them Shashamane land. The city of Ferraris where Selassie come from. From Addis Ababa in a Botswana. Left Kenya, I end up in a Ghana. Oh, what a beauty, me eyesight behold. Holy Ethiopia, protect me from the cold. Till I'm laid to rest. Yes, always be depressed. There's no life in the West. I know the East is the best. All the propaganda them spread. Tongues will have to confess. Organize, centralize, come as one.